Hey guys, Addie here. Today we are building a 2x2 bedroom home in the heart of Innis Green in the Spruceberry Grove neighborhood. And we are building kind of like a cottage, I guess. This particular build was something that I really wanted to do ever since the Enchanted by Nature game expansion pack game pack came out. I had built 3 fairy related builds when the pack first came out, and I built them in Everdew, and I didn't really build in the other 2 neighborhoods. There is, I can't remember the one that's like got the gnomes in it. That's like the town square. And then you've obviously got Spruceberry Grove, where this particular build is. And this is built on the Enchanted Lovers lot, which was a pre-made built by one of the EA creators. And it was a beautiful home. And I actually took a lot of inspiration from that build with this particular build. And a lot of what the surrounding lots in this area had done, it used a lot of terrain manipulation. I tried and I just really couldn't get it done. I really didn't feel confident with my skills with terrain manipulation. And I do want to try more of it. There are some split level homes I want to do and just kind of really use that tool, in the game and to improve my skill. So yeah, the goal of today's build was to build something, a family home that you could play in and not necessarily be a fairy, because I feel like with this pack, the goal is, I guess, to be a fairy. But then I think that's because with the gameplay, I feel that if you take out the fairy gameplay, there's not much to this particular expansion pack. But in terms of being a builder, we can build really pretty things. Regardless of the actual gameplay of a pack, we can still build pretty things. And that was what I wanted to do today. In terms of the inspiration for this build, I really took inspiration from the original build that was on this particular lot. It had these beautiful wraparound porches and a staircase from the second floor of the home. In the original, the staircase would go down into a garden. I have still done that, but I've done it slightly different, where I've used a lot of pathing and I've made it look very different. I've also got a central kind of sitting area within the garden space, which you'll see. I did spend a lot of time on the landscaping and the exterior of this build because it was a fairly spacious lot, and I didn't want to do a massive build. Because even though I wanted this to be a non-fairy build, if I was to play in this particular build, I know that I would be so tempted to have a fairy sim. And once you have a fairy sim, they actually don't require a lot. You don't even need to have a bathroom. There's several like objects and things that you just don't need for a fairy. If you would like to download and play in this build, it is available on the Sims 4 gallery. My gallery ID is Antoinette44. It is in the description below if you'd like. This build, along with all of the other builds you've seen this month, will be down in the description. In the gallery, sorry. Okay, let's get back into it. So I have, at this point, very much built what we call the shell and the exterior of the build. I've used, of course, all of the exterior wallpaper from Enchanted by Nature. I've paired that beautiful rich kind of wood tone that kind of looks like it's intended for like building tree houses, and paired it with that kind of scale, like, I don't know what it is, sliding that we got in there with the green. The browns and the greens just fit really well with this particular area. There are a lot of builds that use that color scheme in this neighborhood. And Spruceberry Grove is kind of it's like a countryside neighborhood. It's not necessarily magical, and it's not necessarily a town center. So kind of, gives me vibes of like, I guess, the Bramblewood neighborhood in Cottage living kind of thing. So definitely where you would find a cottage. And this is, a family cottage. Yeah. All right, let's go through the floor plan. So you walk in, you have a kitchen dining space. Then you walk through, you have another dining space and a sitting area that has a fireplace. That then laps around to where you have the downstairs bathroom and the apothecary area. So I have off to the side, onto the right hand side of the build, you will see a space that's dedicated for the apothecary skill, which is of course a major gameplay feature that came with Enchanted by Nature. And that's just an area to explore that. It also is where the main staircase to the upstairs is. You then can walk out of an archway, and that leads you to the exterior of the build. So it's just a very open space. And I think that that's really good if you were to do, I think it's the apothecary, or I forget what the actual career name is called, title is called, but if you were to do that career in this particular build, having a very accessible area that is almost a little bit away from the rest of the home. And I could have put a proper door to where it would separate the home from that area. So you really could have a designated business space there. And it's correct, it's directly to the outside. They can come in, they can do their business, and they can go. So that was kind of the vibe of that. And I also liked the idea that it's like bringing the outdoors in. If I wanted to, I could have made that more of like a sunroom. In this particular pack, we did get these beautiful tall, floor to ceiling windows. Some of them are quite damaged and old. Actually, no, that's not this pack. That's a different pack. I'm thinking of Life and Death. No, that's Life and Death. But we did kind of get a glass kind of wallpaper, because I believe we got glass walls around the time that this particular pack came out. So I could have made like a little sunroom there. But anyway, I like the area that I've built. Okay, moving upstairs, you then have a master bedroom, which does have like a little enclosure for kind of like a newborn. So even though this is a 2x2, you really could theoretically say that this is kind of a 3x2. The second bathroom maybe wasn't as necessary. It is that weird L-shaped room that tacks on to the master bedroom. I just had this really obscure amount of space upstairs, so I decided to make it a bathroom and just to utilize that space. So upstairs you have the master bedroom, you have that small bathroom. Across the hall you have a child's room. Or is it a toddler's room? It might be a toddler's room. I'm not sure. Could be a toddler's room. And that's a beautiful room. It's my favorite room in the entire house. It's gorgeous. And then you have balcony access on two sides. So you have balcony access from the master bedroom, and you have balcony access from the general upstairs foyer. And that leaps around towards the back of the property. So lots of access to the exterior and these beautiful wraparound porches. I used that kind of layout a little bit when I built back in Ravenswood. When I did a Ravenswood cottage, I also did a similar kind of thing with a wraparound porch and some stairs that are from the second landing. I love the look of it. I don't know why, but I've been really enjoying that lately. The other thing that I really loved about this build is I used a lot of those draping plant pieces. So they are pretty much wrapped around all of the windows. I didn't use curtains in this particular build as much. I utilized all the plants because this particular family is more plant loving. So I added that in there. So you've kind of got like a breakfast seating in this particular area, and then your kitchen. Kitchen's very small, just kind of gallery style kitchen. And yeah, I tried to use most of the assets that come with the Enchanted by Nature expansion pack, but there's not a lot. Like, this pack doesn't really come with a lot. I had this weird corner, so I decided to use the dollhouse that comes with the pack and the beautiful couch that comes with this pack and seating. They are my favorite assets of this entire pack. Are the chairs and the lounges and the rugs. I really enjoy the rugs. I tried to use that one rug pretty much throughout the entire build in different swatches, depending on the color story of the build. So the exterior is quite dark. It has a middle to dark wood tone paired with kind of like a forest green. But you go inside, I've still used the green, but it's more of a light wood shade. And I like that. I think it makes the green stand out a little bit more. And we've complemented it more with the yellow. So Innis Green is based off of, I think it's Ireland. It's meant to have an Irish kind of vibe to it. And I do really think the color scheme of this particular build, especially from the internal, color scheme. I think it's very on trend for that. I love this little Gandalf gnome thing. That's super cute. But I did struggle with decor. I did struggle to like, what am I going to use in this build? Because this is a very thematic build where it's like, I can't put this in Willow Creek. It's not going to fit. And there's a lot of assets that just will not, go into this type of build. So anyway, I digress. This is the apothecary area. I put in some planter pots and I put in all of the objects that come with that kind of skill. And it's just a nice little neat area. It's a good way to use that space. And as I said, that opens up to the exterior and you just walk out there and that's where the pond is, in that kind of area. And we also have the nature press. So through the living room to where this, I guess the main back door would be, I have put in a desk and the nature press item. I love those nature press paintings. I actually use them a lot in my standard family homes. There are a lot of swatches that use like purples and like deeper blues, and they complement rooms where kids' rooms and teen rooms where I'm using that color scheme, which I kind of always use. It's like purple, pink, type rooms. And I really love this pack for the amount of purple assets we got. It just is depending on whether I can use them in a non-fairy build. So yeah, these ottomans are definitely, these benches are more external, but I like the look of it. And it's The Sims. It's not going to matter that it's meant to be for the outside. I just love the look of it. So as you can see, I've made that little area that you could put a newborn, and it's obviously not realistic that they would share a space with in the master bedroom. Like, you wouldn't want to permanently keep that. But again, it's The Sims. It would work. I do end up putting a door into the upstairs bathroom. So I guess you could say it's an ensuite. Massive bathroom. You will see that in the tour in more detail. But it had a lot of space. So I've used all of the bedroom furniture in here. I have used other packs in this particular build, but I tried to keep it to a minimal amount of other packs used, just because it is more of a thematic build. It's going to make more sense if you just use Enchanted by Nature. But yeah, I just tried to use a color scheme that's more complementary. The access to the front balcony is through that door, which is near where the bassinet is. And then the back door is back balcony, wow, is through that door there from the landing space. This is the toddlers or child's room. I can't remember what life stage this room is for, but it is my favorite room in the house. It's so cutesy, and I love this rug that has the gnome on it. I think I use a different shade though, one that's potentially got a little bit more pink in it. Potentially, it's got a bit of pink in it. I believe that this is a toddler bed from memory, and I've paired it with that beautiful wallpaper. I've also used that wallpaper in the master bedroom, but I think that the more pastel-y colors are definitely geared more towards children's rooms, as opposed to the deeper colors, which you could make a master bedroom out of, which I've used. I love the little toy box, and how the facial expressions of the toy box or the acorn changes depending on the swatch, which is really cool. I've used the mirror that comes with this pack. Again, wanted to use every asset that I could. I use these benches all around the build. They are on every balcony. They're also, I put in a pagoda type item in the garden, and I use them in that area as well. The back part, just the balcony facing the back, just has some gardening, and then the balcony facing the front has a full sitting area, plus I believe that's where I put the chess table in this particular build. I put in some further seating around the side where the main back door on the lower ground is. And now I'm just going around with columns and finalizing the exterior. I put in these beautiful wall lights. They're very magical looking, which I think is okay. This particular build, I was trying to go for more cottage and not like less fairy, but I still think that some of the assets are beautiful. I loved these fences that have the florals and the greenery on them. Additionally, in the start, you would have seen that I had put them on all the fencing, on like where all the balconies were, but it was a bit too much, and I liked the idea of it being that's where the garden is, and then you just use a standard fencing for the actual property itself, and then you can, yeah. So I started with obviously mapping out the garden with the floral fencing. I then moved to doing the pond, which is just using the terrain tool and the water tool. So you just lower into the ground and make a pond area and then fill it with water. That's all that is. And then I've gone in with my pathing. This helps me section. So this kind of helps me visualize, okay, so how big's the garden? What am I going to put in the garden? What's going to go there? Where would I put trees? Where would I put plants? How can I furnish or decorate this space so that it doesn't look too cluttered, but it doesn't look empty? Because that's the thing with sometimes when you have larger lots. This is not a large lot. I think this is a 40 by, it's either a 30 by 40 or it could even be a 30 by 30 lot. It's not massive, I would say, but this is only a 2-bedroom home. So it's not a huge house. A lot of this build is landscaping and the exterior, because to me, that's what this pack is about. This expansion pack really talks about living, I guess, living off the land in a way. It's it's not living off the land in the way that cottage living does, but it is embracing nature and being one with nature and all of that kind of fun things. Anyway, so you see the little sitting area. I believe I put in a tree. I put in a decorative dormer piece. I just think it needed something. I didn't attempt to put any kind of plants or foliage on the roof. It is something that we were able to do with this particular pack. But the interesting thing is that a lot of the, the design would have curved, like a kind of a curved or slightly curved roof. And they're really impossible to put the decorative plants on those curved roofs. So in the end, I didn't bother because I had curved the roof and I knew that it was going to be a headache. And I also feel, but looking back, I could see how nice it could have been. I do see the appeal, and it would have maybe potentially elevated this build just to give it a little bit more, appeal from the facade. But I still think it's a lovely build. And at this point, I just opened the debug menu and I just went to town. So all of the landscaping is from the debug menu. And one of the things that we got in the debug menu are these plain green lay-lowing flowers, which are these ones here. I use these in pretty much every build because the ones that come with the base game, they are those bright, kind of green with little yellow flowers, and they just look really dull, and sometimes you just want the plain, green foliage. So yeah, I really like those. I paired it with a lot of pinks and blues and purples, and I've used, you can see the pagoda piece. So this is where it's starting to come together at this point. I've used some pond plants and foliage, so that's really good. Add a lot of the trees, so you can still access that pond. You need to make sure that it's deep enough. You need to make sure it's shallower enough for the sim to go in, but then deep enough to still look like a pond. You'll find out right away if it's not in your gameplay. Oh my god, these beautiful trees. So the trees with the white flowers, I really loved them. I decided to lean into those. And we've got a swing set at the front. I guess this is to depict that it is a family home, and I wanted to use that object because it's beautiful. I also could have used the gate that pairs well with that, but I decided not to. I saw these barrels. Don't know if they really fit the vibe of this particular build, but I just wanted to add them in. I added in the palette that has the little flowers on it into this garden area. You've got the little fairy house. So I put in a fairy house because I wanted to make sure that you could have all of that gameplay that this pack comes with. And just having that fairy house makes being a fairy so easy. So that's kind of why I think you can have less in your actual house than when you are, as opposed to just playing normally, because that fairy house allows you to do so much. All right, I am just going around now and just making sure that all of my areas are properly cluttered and that I have everything I need. And I think we are now moving inside for the tour. So you walk in, you have that kitchen, kind of like a breakfast nook. You walk in, you have your proper dining and living. No TV in this build. You don't need it for this particular expansion pack. You have your downstairs bathroom and that apothecary area and that space that you have where your nature press that leads you out to the balcony, the porch, sorry. You then head upstairs to the master bedroom. Oh, no, sorry, that toddler's room. My favorite room in the entire house. It's so cute and colorful in there. The upstairs bathroom, which is massive. I've made sure to use more of the greenery and the plants throughout the entire build. Lovely master bedroom with the newborns kind of nook. Have the chess table, sitting area, and then you head downstairs where the garden is. You have your pagoda. I am going to add in those benches under the pagoda. I think that makes so much sense. And the pop of red is complementary to the pops of red throughout the entire exterior. Red goes really nice with green. Has kind of like a Christmassy vibe to it, actually. And that is the build today, guys. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I really hope you enjoyed today's build. If you did, leave a like, comment, and consider subscribing. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.